definitely want to reach out with me, I would love to talk to you. I am Googleicious, so you can find me everywhere online. Ava Laura. I am the only Ava Laura, so you don't have to worry about anybody else. It is just
the only one who says Googleicious.
I am
right.
Googleicious.
I like that.
Googleicious.
You go to avalaura.com and you can get all my links. You can connect.
I know you're the only one right now, but I'm going to start saying that.
That's okay. Just look, just say Ava Laura said it like 1 or 2 times, and then you can just leave me off. You know, like
okay.
Then you claim it as yours. Yes, but you can find me everywhere. Ava Laura, AVALAURA. Avalaura.com is my website, and it'll give you all my links to all of my social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. I'm everywhere. So just holla.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. All right. We have Ms. Crystal next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Morris. I'm a licensed professional counselor. Just like Ava Laura said, specialize holistic. I take a holistic integrative approach. So I have a group practice as multidisciplinary. So we do counseling, meditation, yoga, nutrition, wellness, and massage. So we have a meditation room. I specialize with PTSD trauma, relationship issues, so individual, do a lot of couples, and depression, anxiety. So I work with adolescents like 11 and up to adulthood. I was a school counselor, so I have that background, taught as well. Let's see. You can find me on Facebook, Butterflies Prospering Wellness. It's long, I know, I try to shorten it. But Butterflies Prospering Wellness, and then website, butterfliesprosperingwellness.com, and Instagram also, trying to get up on the social media sites, at Butterflies Prospering Well NCO. I have another kind of a branch of a business, Positive Living. So I wrote a journal, 21 Days of Positive Living. You can follow us on Facebook as well, 21 Days of Positive Living, or Positive Living 21 on Instagram. So we post inspirational, use mindfulness, meditation, those type of things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have been watching. They're on it, aren't they, Tanisha? Everybody's giving their social media handles like right up. First, we had to remind everybody. They're like, no, I'm giving you all my stuff now.
He's going to ask you to say it again. So just.
Yep. All right, Steve.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I said if I was in Killeen, Texas.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
You're in Killeen.
I probably did not say that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Alexander. Steve Alexander Jr., because I realize my name is very common, but if you put the junior on there, it's a lot easier to find me. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of New York, graduate of Teachers College, Columbia University, and I'm a founder of what we call authorityspeaking.com, where we teach individuals and organizations how to present more effectively and teach them how to get through things like social anxiety. But as a clinician, I have a small private practice in Brooklyn, New York, 2 offices, one in Brooklyn, one in Manhattan. Currently, we're all virtual because just to limit the exposure. But when you come to New York, I'm in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And my specialties really are trauma and communication, because I believe that all mental health disorders stem from unresolved trauma and an inability to assert yourself effectively and communicate and express your needs. So the modalities I use is really supportive counseling, where you come in and I meet you where you are. But if in cases like complex trauma, I do use a modality known as EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. If you'd like to find me, you can find me at authorityspeaking.com or on Psychology Today. Or if you just type in stevealexanderjr.com, you'll see me pop up. I'm probably one of the first ones there. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Did you know that Steve said I have a small private practice in 2 locations? You better drop that small off and say I got a private practice in 2 locations.
All right, next we have Kay.
Hello, I am Kay Henry. I am a New York State licensed mental health counselor. So see, I'm in the Bronx. You're in Brooklyn, I'm in the Bronx. But I also work Lower Westchester as well. So that would cover New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, Yonkers, whatever's lower than like Rye, if you're familiar with New York. So my background is so I have like several jobs. So I'll go through all several jobs. So by day, right now I'm on vacation. I'm West Indian. We have several jobs. So my day, right now I'm on vacation from my day job, which is in drug prevention. So I work with kids in school, teaching them drug prevention in individual, group, classroom, stuff like that. I just started a private practice. I haven't gotten the paperwork yet, but I'm, have my private practice. It's Positive Minds, mental health counseling, psychotherapy. So that will be, I am taking clients right now, just waiting on the paperwork. And then I work in a clinic as well, evening hours, per diem, fee for service. So that's trauma focused. And so I work with a lot of clients with depression, anxiety, trauma related, ADHD. My client caseload goes from children, school age, all the way up to adults, mid 40s, however old. So I work with a wide range of individuals. My hashtag, I also have a podcast. So it's Black Therapy Uncensored. So you can check that out. I started that in January as a way to, as a therapeutic standpoint. I used to do small little vignettes on Facebook and Instagram. And then I just said, let me just do a podcast. People like it, and they said it's helpful for them. So you can catch me on Facebook, Black Therapy Uncensored. Instagram, Black Therapy Uncensored, just take out all the vowels except for the U. The same thing for Twitter. I'm on there as well. Black Therapy Uncensored, just take out all the vowels except the U. And that is it. I like what I do. My hashtag is prescription to positivity. And so I work with my clients to create a growth mindset, positive mindset. So let's change those negative thoughts to positive thoughts. And I use a lot of CBT and mindfulness to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kay.
Zandra, let's go with you.
Hi, my name is Zandra Rutledge. I am a licensed professional counselor in DeSoto, Texas. I have a private practice. It's called Your Life Counseling Consultants and Associates. I also am a co-owner of Marriage Untamed with my husband, who also is a counselor. And we do a lot of marriage. If you're looking for marriage where you can do not just one counselor, but you have a male and female perspective, I do that when I do pre-marriage and marriage counseling. I also deal with women relationships, and I deal with depression and anxiety because during the day, we always have many jobs. And so I am working in the behavioral hospitals. Let's see, what else? I deal with CBT and mindfulness, and I think that's it. Oh, you can find me on Psychology Today. You can find me on marriageuntamed.com. You can also find me at Your Life Counseling, which is yourlifecca@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tiffany.
And your ABD.
I'm sorry? Oh,
your
and I am ABD. I'm also getting my doctorate, and so I am a doctoral candidate. And so hopefully soon I'll be there also.
Yay.
Oh, and by the way, I don't do kids. I always have to say that, 19 and above.
Thank you.
One more.
I am Dr. Tiffany Young. I am the owner of TY Mental Health Consulting. My main role in the mental health field is to be a consultant to small businesses, schools, hospitals on mental health in general. So I focus on crisis management. I go into the schools and teach them crisis management materials. In my clinician life, I do specialize in Black women's anxiety, trauma, and crisis management as well. I am the author of Amaya and Friends See a Counselor. It is a children's book that teaches children of color about the counseling process. And you can find that on Amazon or Barnes & Noble's online. I'm also the author of What Why Mindset Reset, which is a curriculum for school counselors to assist with those negative behaviors that children have in schools. And you can also find that on Amazon or Barnes & Noble's as well. In my day life, like we all said, we have billions of jobs. So in my day life, I am the risk director at Hickory Trail Hospital. You can find me online on Instagram at TY Mental Health Consulting, or at drtlyoung.com, or just Google Dr. Tiffany Young and it'll bring me up.
You're Google-licious.
I am Googlicious. It will bring me up.
We will forever use that. You guys, thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, you all mentioned very busy schedules. As you all said, you're working multiple jobs, doing multiple things. So we just appreciate that you're giving us 2 hours of your time to just discuss some questions, but also to allow people to see who you are and what you do. So there's actually a question that was posted really early when we logged on. I don't want us to miss it. Someone asked, does anyone specialize in working with teen males?
Teen males?
With teen males?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I work with teen males. I do, in my day job that I'm on vacation from now, I do groups with them and I do individual with them, and I really like working with the teen boys. The teen girls are a totally different story, but I like teen boys because you can, I'm not gonna get into, it's just the whole challenging thing I can't. But the boys, once you put them, it's a respect thing. So if you let them know, hey, like you're out of line, you're being disrespectful, feelings might be a little hurt, but they come back and they're willing to learn and grow. So I've seen the greatest growth with them, and I really do like working with the teenage boys.
Yeah, same here. I would say just by default, I do work out of a clinic as well, and 90% of my clients are teenage boys out of the clinic now.
Okay.
Wow.
I say as a school counselor, I work with adolescents, so teens, males and females. So I have both of those populations, so 11 and up, not the little kids. So.
Does anybody work with little kids that is on today? Okay, I
work with everybody. I do. I work with everybody.
Yeah, just by the nature of those outpatient mental health clinics, you get like a wide variety of everyone that comes in. So I think it's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
True.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, here's another question for you guys. So in case someone is watching and they're thinking about coming to see you for services, what would that experience be like for them? And anyone, feel free to share.
When they first come to see me, I always tell everyone the first couple of sessions, we're building rapport. So I'm trying to get to know you so I know how to work with you best. I could have 5 clients that all have depression. I'm treating everyone differently. And I use the book as a resource, the DSM and other resources, but I don't want to be so book heavy that I lose sight of what you're really there for. So it's the first couple sessions are me just getting to know you, shooting the breeze. And to people that doesn't feel like therapy, but that is therapy, because part of it is getting to know you and building that rapport. And if I don't build that with you, then your likelihood of continuing with me is very slim.
I deal with a lot of marriages. When I deal with marriages, the first thing I do is that I'm real about it and transparent. There's nothing in my marriage that hasn't been told or said or done, because we're all in the trenches when we're dealing with marriage, and I've got to be real. Marriage is a great thing, but it can be hard. It is not for the weary. If you're selfish, then you shouldn't be married. When couples come, I'm not going to sugarcoat things. And when I have my husband there, his crazy matches my crazy. And so together, we are very transparent about marriage, and we're really serious about it. And if you want to put your marriage back together, we can help you with that. But we're not going to work harder than you are.
And I have that same kind of philosophy as well. When I have that same kind of philosophy about not working harder than the client, I do work from the CBT paradigm. And so when you come to my website, you're going to take an anxiety quiz and we're going to go over your results. And then when you schedule your first appointment, I'm going to try to normalize being a Black woman with anxiety. And I use my own personal story about being with anxiety at 19 in a pre-med class and freaking out and having to go to a therapist for the first time when I was 19 and being diagnosed with anxiety, and trying to normalize that for Black women, because often we're labeled as the angry Black woman when really oftentimes those angry Black women are anxious Black women. So we're going to normalize for you, and then we're going to go through a very kind of structured program because it is CBT. Of course, I'm going to get to know you and build rapport, as Kay said, but it's kind of a very structured programming because of the CBT nature of it.
Yeah, my approach is a little different just because, like I said, most of my clients are life coaching clients. But because I have a background in counseling and mental health, they'll likely get some of that too if they need it. I don't work with everybody who actually wants to work with me. I'm at the point now where I'm very picky about my clients. So they actually have to schedule a consultation first. And that's the first start, and just kind of see if, we can work together. I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have podcasts, I have videos, I have my YouTube, all of that. So they can get a sense of who I am. And if I resonate with them, because I'm pretty straightforward. I've had my clients say that, I'm loving, I'm nurturing, but I'm gonna get on you as well. So my clients know to expect that I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to be sweet. I'm going to tell you how much I love you, how wonderful you are. And if you're not doing what you need to be doing, I'm going to let you know that too. So my clients know that. So they need to know if that's going to resonate with them. If you don't want somebody who's going to be honest and tell you the truth, you don't want to work with me. So I start with the consultation. After the consultation, we pretty much get right to work. It is structured, but it's also customized. So I actually have a workbook that I utilize, meditations, and that is the foundation of the work that we do. So it's not just kind of talking and listening. We're actually reading, looking at your assignments. I always give assignments, always give assignments. And we talk about those things and discuss those things and really look at how does this relate to your life and what's going on with you, and how can you use this information to help you to improve and be better.
Thank you.
Thanks. I was going to say I take a positive psychology, strengths-based approach to counseling. So for focusing on mindfulness, character strengths, instead of focusing on the person's problems, all of their deficits, what's happening right. So I approach that way with couples counseling as well. What's wrong, but of course is always communication is, the first start, and teaching them about boundaries, healthy relationships. We do groups as well. So we have groups on YouTube, have a podcast for the Positive Living brand. So we talk about different things, me and my other business partner. So usually when you come in, I am relational. So I'm taking a relational cultural theory approach to counseling, building that rapport with you, like everyone has said here. And then we do the assessment, and it's customized. So that integrative part, whether we're practicing, I have a teacher background. So whether we're practicing something, I'm going to give you practice tasks, we'll say homework and assignment, different things that they can do, different meditations. So you can even come into the office. There's meditation music. It's kind of like a spa setting. I have a butterfly effect room. That's the meditation room where you pray, quiet time, whatever you want to call it. Before session, you can come in 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after, in between sessions. So I like to customize and let people feel like you're, help them to be their best self. So.
Yeah, so for me, it's going to start with, if you remember from the introduction, I'd like to meet clients where they are. So every session or for every individual is going to look a little bit different. But if I'm sitting here trying to be honest, I probably, though it's not a formal intake in my private practice, I do tend to go with strengths towards the beginning, because I think a lot of that is used, especially if you start getting to heavier stuff like EMDR. Now, if the person comes in and they say, listen, I just have this complex trauma I'm going to get through, I was hit by a car, sometimes rape, whatever the case may be, then we'll get right into EMDR, and that's very rigid. But the very default approach is usually laid back and meeting the client where they are.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. So if a person was interested in seeing you, how would they pay for their services? What types of payment do you all take?
That's a good question. So for me, I'm out of network, so I don't accept insurance at this time. So what happens, I offer a sliding scale, so we work it out. So I have a set fee that I charge, which is listed on Psychology Today, but I like to feel like if I have the space, I don't like turning people away. So we can talk about whatever works for them, because you also, if somebody's worrying about paying for a session, I think that gets in the way of the work as well. So to answer, I don't necessarily take insurance, but I do submit claims or have people reimbursed, but I'm not just on the panel. So I don't know if that makes any sense. So I'm not contracted with the insurance companies, but you can submit my bill and then get a form of reimbursement if your insurance company allows that.
Right, so you're an out-of-network provider, and so they can get a receipt or super bill from you and submit it to their insurance company.
Got it.
I don't take any insurance as well, and I'm actually package based, so most of my clients commit to working with me for at least a 3-month period, although I would say the majority of them continue longer than that, but I want them to commit to that process up front, because it is a process. I don't want anybody coming and saying, oh, I'll come for 1 session or 2 sessions, so I bill accordingly like that. And I take Cash App, Venmo, Invoice, Facebook. What else do I take? Zelle, everything.
I also don't take any insurance, but I do utilize a level system as well. So I have 3 stages. I do have a quick start program, and that's really for people who are not quite sure that they're ready to start the counseling process. So it introduces clarity, coping skills, and crisis management to them. And then I do have just a standard program as well, in which I would like for them to commit for at least 8 weeks. That's how long my standard program takes. And then I do have concierge therapy as well, in which I do go and travel to the client's home. And those are for my clients that like to be a little bit more discreet, those high intensity clients that want more access to me. And so they pay per month. And so that's how I do my fees. Also, I am contracted with Open Path Collective. And so if there's somebody who can't afford my fees, I push them towards Open Path, and then Open Path offers them the reduced fee.
I also am cash based. I do a sliding scale sometimes because marriage, when you are in trouble with marriage, you don't want money to be an issue. If they're in trouble, they're in trouble, especially if they're headed toward divorce and that's not really where they want to be. With my depression, anxiety, I basically have a sliding scale if need be. But you know what? If it's important to you, then you want to do counseling, then money shouldn't be an issue. Sometimes we'll do our nails, we'll do our hair, but we don't want to pay for counseling, especially when it's our people. And mental health is very important. It really is. And we're not all trying to be rich here, I'm sure. I know I'm not. I'm here to help.
Speak for yourself, Zandra. I
Okay,
need to be
speak for
very
yourself,
comfortable.
child.
I want to bless folks,
Look,
but I
don't
want to be
speak for me.
Don't speak for me, boo-boo.
I didn't take that vow, Zandra.
Okay.
I take insurance despite and sliding scale, but I'm near Fort Hood, Killeen, so I do work with military veteran population. So don't do EMDR, but CBT. So I take insurance, TRICARE, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medicaid, Superior. One day I will probably graduate. I'm in San Antonio area, and I go between 2 locations, San Antonio, Texas, and Killeen. That's where my office is. So I go on the weekends. So I'll do some face-to-face, and I do video sessions mainly. But I do take insurance and out of pocket. I try to work with you, like you said, not letting money be an issue. Or I'll refer to one of my other therapists in the office if it's something that, they can't afford a certain price or, can't afford anything at all. Do some pro bono here and there, but not, like you said, we all have to eat, right? So take care of our family. But I usually invoice through Square app, cash, debit card, no checks or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't take insurance, currently don't take insurance. At some point, I probably will put myself on a panel and accept insurance, but right now, no. So I have standard fees, and then I have a sliding scale fee. People can always inquire with me about pricing. Again, if there's an issue with payment, I want people to get the services, but I also got to eat. So, I'll be understanding to a certain extent. So yeah, and I accept payment anyway. PayPal is the biggest one. But however people want to pay, besides checks, let's do it.
So it definitely sounds like what we're hearing is that services are affordable. And if people don't know that they should just contact clinicians to find out what their rates are, or if they have sliding scales, or if they are connected, like Dr. Young said, if they're partnering with other organizations that may provide services, or as Crystal said, she does some pro bono. So we definitely want people to know that don't seek out services because you think you cannot afford it. As you just heard the clinicians say, that there are multiple options in how payment can be received. So thank you guys for sharing that. We do have a question, you guys, from one of the viewers. The question is, he said, you all seem to use a lot of Western-based theories. Do you use or know of any African-centered approaches?
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I don't know of any.
Yeah, so I would say that I've learned about some of them, but I'm not formally trained in it.
I would want more information in terms of approaches, in terms of what. I mean, I studied at, Howard University, undergrad and grad, so I got enough of African American approaches in theory, especially in psychology of race and racism. I mean, all kinds of it. But mine is much more of an integrative approach, so it's not really focused on an African American approach, although most of my clients are Black. So I'm all about really working with my client and customizing what works for them.
Yeah.
And same with me. Most of my clients are Black women, but pretty much 100% of them are Black women. And so I'm a Black woman first and foremost. And so I'm going to bring my culture and my ethnicity and all those things that we've been talking about here in these recent crises into the counseling session as well. You're not going to have to explain to me your colloquialisms or your slang, because I understand you and I get you.
I think most of us, if they're talking about African or African American, we're all mostly African American. So I'm sure we all understand what the African American experience is because we experience it every day. So I don't think I know I don't have a per se African American, but that's what I am and that's what I live.
I mean, I'm thinking, and that's why I asked for clarification if they're talking about like Frances Cress Welsing or Naeem Akbar, some of the more African-centered psychologists and scholars, but I would need more information.
Yeah, and I would also say too, it's like, you have to be very careful of anyone that rigidly clings onto any approach. This is through my experience. Even if the person is Black and it's like, well, I just know the Black experience, and you have to be careful with that too. The person should meet you where you are and then create a customized approach to you and your needs, whatever's going on in your life. It's just like this. Like if you went to a doctor and before you said anything, said, all right, let me give you some Tylenol. You'd be like, what are you talking about? Hey, get out of here, right? So the person has to be able to tailor their interventions, whether that be EMDR, whether it be CBT or solution, but whatever the case may be, they have to be able to tailor it to your needs and expectations.
We had a couple of questions. So one is from a new professional, and he asked, how do you set your sliding scale? How do you manage clients who don't want to pay your fee? And then do you lower it to meet them where they are?
I know when I first started into this business, it was really, I had a hard time in trying to pick how much do I want to charge, because I wanted clients. But do you want clients to just always like, well, I don't have any money. And like you said, you have to eat. So when you first start, look and see what the rest of the field is doing and see what people are out there charging. What do you feel you're worth? You also have to look at that.
Yeah, you can have a very adverse effect if you have to look at the market and see what the trends are. But if you price yourself too low, then people, it's very bizarre. You think that you're doing something that's very like altruistic, but people start thinking like, all right, well, what's wrong with them that they're charging so low and everybody else is charging here? So it's a delicate balance, but I would look at your years of experience, what you bring to the table, of course, demand, especially in the area that you're in, and then price it accordingly.
I mean, with sliding scale, you can do an income based on, how much the person is earning. So, I mean, for example, I'll just throw it out here. Someone's earning like 60,000, maybe you can charge them between 60 and like 75. I mean, you can basically set the rate at what you want. But again, back to what, Steve is saying, look at your experience. Who I was 5 years ago and what I'm charging now, like, I have way more experience now where I can say, hey, I'm comfortable charging this amount as opposed to 5 years ago. Me charging what I'm charging now, like that wouldn't fly. So, you know, an income based, and then just talking to the client and being realistic. I mean, if you have an open dialogue with them, I think most people would be willing to pay whatever you said, or you can negotiate. So I just look at, in my area, what people are offering, and then maybe I scale it back just a little bit, not a lot, but just enough so I look affordable, but I'm still getting what I'm worth.
I was gonna say, because I'm in a military area, a lot of times they want to use insurance as heavy base. So some clients, if I don't take their insurance, you know, I have a set rate, like you said, sliding scale. So like you said, knowing your worth, this is what I'm worth, this is the lowest. In the beginning, it was kind of like, oh yeah, I want to get clients, but I teach practicum students, interns, like, hey, this is your set fee. This is how many clients you need to see to make, how much money do you want to make? And then that's based on how I would determine, you know, what you want your salary to be. So more of that, I guess, the business side of it as a clinician or counselor.
And also, one other point I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing, Dr. Guy was my LPC supervisor. And so one of the things that she taught me, and it stuck with me, is, do you want to be a businesswoman or do you want to be a clinician? And sometimes you can't do both. Sometimes you really do have to set your fee, and that's the fee. And my fees are posted on my website. And what's interesting is clients don't really read a lot. And so it's hard. Sometimes they come back and still they're talking to you about money when it's on I put it on the website so you wouldn't have to ask me that question, but they still ask me, but the fees are there. They're on Psychology Today. They're on my website, prominent, where you know before you even call me how much this is going to cost. And I do not lower my fees at all. And like I said, if someone can't afford the fee, then I do push them towards the resource that can offer them the lower fee. So I don't do any sliding scales. My fee is set.
I don't either. I mean, I used to, when I first started coming from that social work background, oh, I want to save the world. Oh, you know, everybody needs help. Everybody needs healing. But I had this one client. Every week she came to me. She came in with her Starbucks coffee. And I remember one week she came in and she was like, oh, I'm not going to be here next week. And I said, why? She said, I'm going on vacation. I'm like, oh, where are you going? And I said, wait a minute. This woman can afford her Starbucks coffee every week. And she can afford to go on vacation, but she can't pay me my full fee. And that was the day that I stopped sliding scale. So that's been over 10 years now. So right now, just because of Corona, I had a couple clients who their work schedule shifted. They were in the service industry here in the DC area, so they could not work. So I did work with them, but they had been working me for a while, paying my full fee. But I don't take sliding scale fee anymore. So I'm probably not the person that you want to work with if you're looking to bargain hunt. But if you're looking for results, then you can come to me.
That part. If you're looking for results, yeah.
I would prefer to, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would prefer to, if they can't afford my rate, you know, I have interns or practicum student. If it's something, that's when I say pro bono. Me personally, unless I'm led to work with someone, but I would refer them to someone else in the office if they can't afford, you know, my set rate.
All right, so we have another question. I'm looking for a practitioner that has experience with sexual trauma. Are any of the practitioners on the panel experienced in that area? And then they asked about if any of the clinicians work with adoptive children from trauma. So really trauma-based is what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think, no, go ahead, Chris. I think you have something.
Sorry. No, I work with, do CPT for trauma, sexual, military, combat, trauma, and women issues. Not children, it depends on the age. 11 and up is what I would see if I was working, doing any type of trauma work.
Steve, were you going to say something?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is you get to see what state the person is in. Because unfortunately, this is a rant that we could probably have offline about all these, you know, types of things in different states. It makes no sense at all, but that's the big thing. You got to find someone within the state where you're living or residing.
Mm-hmm. Another question, is there anyone located in Houston?
not in Houston, but I do virtual therapy. So I am in Dallas, but I see clients all over Texas. I probably have somebody in most of the major states on my caseload right now, most of the major cities, sorry, in Texas right now.
I also do telehealth, so good in different places in Texas. But also they can always find on Psychology Today, you have pictures, you have bios of people, and that's also a good way to find people through Psychology Today that I found.
Or Therapy for Black Girls
For
too.
Black girls,
if you're
yeah.
specifically looking for a Black therapist, yeah, you can go there as well. But I think most people are offering telehealth at this point. So, I mean, in my clients, because of coaching, I've always had clients literally everywhere. I have clients in other countries. So that's the beautiful thing about coaching. I don't have limitations.
There aren't any regulations. This is good.
Ava Laura talked about coaching. I do work with women issues like life coaching, but I'm not a life coach. I'm a licensed professional. But if someone wants to come more of that mentoring side or working on their career issues, things like that, that would be something I would work with as well. But like everyone said, Psychology Today, I think mostly whoever you're looking for, making sure if you're in the state, they're licensed within your state to be able to find you.
You guys, I just wanted to go back to that question that I posed earlier. He said an example. I think you guys were asking for examples. Was that correct? I think.
Clarification.
Yes.
Okay. So he said Wade Nobles has an approach and it's African-centered, and those were the types of approach he was asking if anyone uses specifically, like Naeem Akbar when you mentioned earlier. So that would have been specifically what he was asking about.
Yeah, that's what I figured when he said that. Like I said, I've studied it, but it's not something, again, it's client-based. I mean, if that's what my client wants, or not even if that's what they want, but if that's what they need, then I can integrate that in because I'm familiar. But really, it's really client-based. I think it's good for mental health professionals to have an array of knowledge because I think we pull from that in everything that we do. But I don't know if there's any set, at least for me, there's no set system that I utilize because it really is, it depends on my client. It's really customized approach for them.
But I think it's a good question on it. And the reason why is because if we look at most of these orientations that we're talking about, like CPT and CBT and EMDR, they were founded and created by people that don't look like us. So I know that when we express that we use these modalities, some people might be wondering like, hey, well, what about something for us? So I completely get it. But to speak to what everyone else was saying, you still want to find someone who's very client focused and will put your needs first. There's a nice research on the dodo bird theory, and it's controversial, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And what it says is that all of the therapies are essentially the same when you line them up side by side, with the exception of like very specific things. But what matters is the client relationship, the therapeutic alliance. So that's really what matters. And when you go to that first session, if you don't feel like you can tell them anything, or you feel like they're condescending, or for some reason they're judging you, that's like a good sign. You probably want to get out of there.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Or if you feel like you have to hold back,
Right.
I had a new client that started today. She said, okay, I got to be honest, right? I said, yes. And so she just started telling me everything. And she was happy though, because she had a therapist before where she felt like she could not do that. And if you can't tell them everything, if you feel like you have to hold back, you're not getting the benefits. So you're absolutely right. Like that relationship is so important, and you want somebody who you feel like is not judgmental, not judging you, is approachable, and you can talk about anything, and is really going to help you to have a positive outlook on whatever is going through, especially when you all are talking about trauma and things like that, because it can get dark. It can get really heavy, especially now, everything that everybody's dealing with. I mean, my clients are like, I got to deal with my own personal stuff, and then I got to look at what's going on in the world, and this is heavy, this is too much. So you definitely need somebody who can relate to all of that and is not going to judge you, and is going to make you feel better after each session. You want to feel better.
Yes.
When
And
you're
can I say one other thing on that too, real quick? So it works in 3 parts, all right? So you have the clinical knowledge, so how to diagnose, and even, I don't even diagnose in my private practice, but it's good to have that kind of underpinning. Then you have the connection, which means the person, right? So it's clinical, connection, and the third is like curiosity. So is a person genuinely interested in learning about you? Are they trying to impose their values on you? If you use those 3 things, I think you can find a very, very good therapist. So clinical, connection, and then you have, what's that third thing I said? I forgot it already. Curiosity. There we go. Oh yeah.
I think when anyone's looking for a therapist, they need to know that when they go into a therapy office, it's like an interview. If that's not the person they connect with, then you're okay with saying, hey, you know what? This is not going to work out. Don't ghost your therapist. Just say, hey, be honest. I don't think we connect. I don't think we're good with each other. And hey, I will help you find another one if I'm not it.
I agree. I agree.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely had to address the elephant in the room and tell them, I don't think we're vibing together. It's not positive connection, because they didn't want to say it. So as a therapist, it's my job to, if they don't say it, hey, well, maybe, like you said, let me help you find someone that is a better fit for you, so that you're getting the help that you need to get. So definitely is true on every level.
But
and then know what you want as well. Kind of know what you want as well. Are you wanting someone who is very, for lack of better words, touchy-feely? Are you wanting someone who's very structured and is going to give you homework assignments or positive reinforcements or whatever we want to call it, or who's going to follow up with you regularly? Or how do you want your counseling to be? Because counseling is on a scale, like you're saying, we go from connection all the way to very rigid theories, and each perspective is going to hold a different place. And so know what you want when you go to that counselor, know what results you're trying to get when you go to that professional, and be able to voice that, because I'm going to be able to tell you if you're looking to tell your story over and over and over without getting any work done, I'm not the one for you. Because we're going to talk about your story a couple of times and then we have work to do.
Right.
So we can't stay in that place. But there are some counselors that will allow you to stay in that place for session after session after session. I'm just not that one. So I will help you to find someone who is more appropriate for that kind of theory.
And to go back to the question about the trauma, just to clarify, did anybody work with adoptive children from trauma? I think nobody on here works with children.
I mean, so, and I think maybe even Kay as well. So when you work at these Article 31 outpatient mental health clinics,
right,
you literally, when I say you see everything. So the youngest is 5, oldest is 82. Adoptive children, I mean, sex offenders, mild anxiety, generalized anxiety, psychosis. You see everything, and I think that's the beauty of working in.
Yeah, I've had a client or two that, so adopted, and they've been through trauma. I mean, one I don't work with anymore. It wasn't a good fit. I was just being challenged on all ends, and it wasn't even like a good challenge where I could be like, all right, let's sit down and like collaborate and talk about it. It was like literally, if the person could have called me like dumb, they would have called me dumb. I was just like, this is not gonna work out.
Guys, we have another question. She says, I've noticed that going through my job's EAP that there's not a lot of African-American therapists or counselors. Is there a reason why?
It's trust. So if you look historically, I'm a nerd. You see all the books here and all that kind of stuff I read all the time. There's been a lot of injustice done on the Black communities, whether we were just testing things. And I say we because we're all part of this system in a way, right? But testing things out on the Black community. Then, of course, you have the stigma. But there's a lot of stuff there, and that carries over. And I'm very mindful of it, specifically when I meet with my clients as well, because that's always kind of going on. So when you say why there's not that many therapists of color, I think that's part of it. And of course, there's going to be many different things, multiple factors, but the historical injustices that have occurred our community. Make people say, well, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to be a part of that.
So I'm very transparent about insurance panels and EAPs and things like that. And part of it is the fee that they pay us is below our, when it comes to the services that we provide. I've seen some EAPs provide as little as $35 a session to a clinician. And for me, that's just not something that I'm willing to do. Some of the EAPs, now that COVID has gone on, have been able to allow us to negotiate those rates and have gone up to a more reasonable rate, but they're always going, it's just lower. The whole insurance system in general needs reform because they do not provide clinicians with a living wage when it comes to those things. And then we have to wait quite a bit of time. I was on several panels and then I got off of those to be self-pay because of the time lapse it took to get paid, and my bills didn't wait for that. You know, so it really is about being transparent about the fee that those EAPs provide clinicians for service.
And then sometimes when you're submitting the claims, you have to go through a third-party vendor. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you see the rates and you think, well, why? We're just talking, why am I paying that much? But there's a lot of administrative expenses that goes into being a therapist, like continuing education, advanced training, rent on multiple offices. If you have multiple offices, there's all these things that factor into it. And I think some clinicians don't even think about it. But if you were to get a spreadsheet and you put it side by side, my background is in business, by the way, so I like this kind of stuff. If you look at it, like almost like a scientist, you say, whoa.
Send us your spreadsheet, Steve.
Yeah, like I'm literally making nothing. You know what I'm saying? So you have to really factor all that in there.
And then one of the other things is that those EAPs and insurance companies oftentimes will require a clinician to diagnose in order to for their services. And that's really difficult for me, especially when I'm seeing someone and I really don't feel they have this diagnosis. So I'm just slapping adjustment disorder on them just so I can get paid. And that's not, for me, there's a lot of disparities in the diagnosis of African-American women and in general. And so just slapping those diagnoses on them just for billing purposes, I didn't feel that was right either.
And I want to make
a lot of the companies right now, or if you're with a company or that has EAP, a lot of the companies now are going with the insurance of Teladoc. Teladoc has behavioral now. A lot of the companies are going that way, especially now since we went through COVID. A lot of them are doing the telebehavioral with Teladoc. So check and see if your company uses that, because that way you don't have to pay again. But there are a lot more African-American providers on there now.
And I was about to say, I think it depends on where you are as well. Like I'm here in the DC area and there's a lot of, Black therapists here in this area. So it depends on what area you're in. And then of course, what insurance, but I agree with all of you. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of my clients actually do like working with me is because there's no record. There's no insurance. Nobody knows that they're seeing me. And I think that's really important for some people. I know people, who are using insurance may not care about that, but there's a record of that. And there's a diagnosis out there now. So you kind of have to think about that when you are using your insurance as well.
But it is protected under HIPAA, so people can't just go and see your diagnosis, just to play devil's advocate. But she's right, it is out there, but people can't see that. So don't worry. If you really need the help and you feel like you connect with someone, you take the insurance or whatever the case may be, go for it.
I was going to take, sorry, I guess I'm not fast enough. EAP, but only certain ones. Like you said, if it's really low, like this is my set lowest rate, I will go. So I have so many, like the business side, so many clients that I will see EAP. And then I have so many that, okay, I have some private pay clients that, like don't want the diagnosis. And then ones that are, the higher insurance. So being strategic and looking at, like you said, the pricing of it. What are they offering? Most of the EAP, well, it doesn't have a diagnosis. The ones that I have, it's just kind of like, I guess it would be a non-medical type of diagnosis. We'll say that.
And I know you guys, we're getting ready to take our break shortly. But I just wanted to make mention to this because we're referring to it as EAP, and we're very familiar, but for anybody who might be watching, EAP is the Employee Assistance Program. And there are several companies now that offer it. If you don't know if your company offers it, then you can either check with a supervisor or someone from HR. And EAP provides you services at no cost to you. So it could be anywhere from 3 sessions up to 12 sessions. It really depends on that company. And if you find someone that you want to see, but they're not in your EAP panel, depending on where you live at and depending on the company, they'll do what's called a single case agreement. So you can ask them to put this person in network can see you. And that's if you have like special cases, right? Like if you are looking for a specific type of treatment and it's not within their network. And the way they search for your EAP providers is by your zip code. So they have to find someone within 30 miles of your home. So if there's a Black therapist that is 28 miles away from your home, then they'll say, oh, we have a Black therapist for you. There she goes, or he goes. Now you might not want to go 28 miles, but for them, it doesn't matter because they fall within that 30-mile radius. So for example, like Laura said, in DC, there's tons of African Americans on EAPs. In Texas, in particular, in the DFW area, depending on what zip code you put in, you're gonna pull up several African Americans. But I used to live in Phoenix, and I pulled up a zip code and I did 200 miles and I didn't find an African American therapist. So it just really depends on where you live at.
You did not?
200 miles. 200 miles from my zip code in Phoenix, and there was no Black therapist in Phoenix, Arizona. That was in 2018. So yeah, it really depends on your area, but know that you can potentially sometimes get someone put in network, and it's called a single case agreement. So you can call them and ask for a single case agreement. If one person tells you no, sometimes you can call back, get somebody else, and they'll feel very compassionate about the situation, and they might do it. So there are some options, you guys, just in case you didn't know that.
Sounds
And
like
an EAP hack. All it has to be, if you use all your sessions, you just have to give them a new issue. So EAP hack, give them a new issue, change it up a little bit, some more sessions.
And sometimes a new person, because a lot of them cover the whole household.
Cover the whole household.
Anyone, I'm glad you mentioned that. Anyone, you guys, for EAP. EAP is not like your medical insurance where you pay for that coverage. So if you don't pay for it, they're not covered. EAP is for anyone living in your house. So if cousin Pookie then overstayed his welcome and that baby needs some therapy, he qualifies for your EAP. And this is literally for anyone, right? So your company probably hasn't told you this, but being I work for an EAP company for several years, it covers anybody in the home. So you guys, if you got family members and they're living with you and you're just like, baby, you need some services, but they're not working, they don't have any money, but you have EAP, they are covered underneath that EAP as well.
And the hack that Dr. Young gave you also works for them, so they could come for. Yep. And I feel like the companies, this will be my last thing to say, I feel like a lot of the companies are being a lot more loose because of COVID-19. And so quite a few of my clients that are EAP have been getting new authorizations without a bunch of struggle like in the past.
Mine have to.
So just keep that in mind. All right, guys, we're gonna take just a little 5-minute stretch break and we will be back. Everybody turn your cameras and sound off so we don't hear you yelling at your kids in the background or doing whatever you do. No. And we'll see you back in a few minutes.
You gonna give us our soft music?
Oh yeah, let me find some. All right, we will wait for everybody to head back.
Ooh, those 5 minutes go by so quick.
It does, but I don't want to take too long because then, you know, people will think it's off.
Absolutely. You guys, I want to lead into a question, and you guys kind of started to touch on it. And so I would love for you guys to be able to answer this. So right now, we understand that these are truly unprecedented times for us, for people that look like us, or for anyone that is a minority and not part of the dominant culture. So people are just experiencing things that run the gamut from anxiety to depression to suicidal ideations to increased aggression, all of the above. So what would you say to somebody who right now is really struggling with just dealing with the everyday of living just because of everything that's going on? What would you say to that particular person? And I know that speaks to trauma, and you guys, a lot of you all made mention to that at the start, that's a area that you work with. And so I think that there are a lot of individuals that are experiencing trauma as a result of COVID, as a result of just the racial inequalities. And so how would you speak to that?
Probably jump in and just say that in a time like this, it's really hard, right? I feel like I've dealt with more crises in the past 3 months than I have as my entire 5 years or so of practicing. And what I would say is that we're here with you, right? Especially we're on this call with a bunch of Black clinicians, and we've all been through some sort of event, either whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. The problem with this here is that not only are we experiencing the trauma of what's going on, but it's like having a wound and the wound gets like agitated, or someone's like putting like a splinter into it, and it's just getting more activated and activated from things that they've experienced when they're coming up. So what I would tell them is that we understand you, we're here with you, and most importantly, if I were with them, I probably wouldn't want to talk too much. I just want to listen, be there with them, and show them like I'm here for you.
I would say definitely dealing with self-care, addressing that. That was something, even as a Black therapist, taking that time for myself. Like you said, we've all experienced some kind of racial inequality or race-based trauma, stress. So I've dealt with that with clients also that were, African-American, Black, and talking through that and what does that look like. So normalizing, hey, it's okay to feel the way that you feel. It's okay to be vulnerable in this space. So helping them to create that safe, brave space that they can discuss and tell their story, their narrative. And then we just meet them where they are and work with them. So I would definitely, I always stress the self-care. I self-disclose that part for myself and the things that I do as a counselor, and to normalize it, that we all go through things and it's okay. So
some of the things with that self-care is that we have to live for today. If we're so focused on what might happen tomorrow, then we're not living today and we lose what's happening today. We can't live in the past and we can't live in the future, but we can live with what's happening right now. And so what's happening right now can seem a little overwhelming. And so that self-care, that mindfulness, what's your hope for life? What's the next thing you're looking for to look forward to? And also, what about your family, your kids? I have a lot of people who have a lot of suicide ideation. And when they're dealing with the suicide ideation, they don't think about anybody but themselves. And sometimes I have to remind them, I'm like, what would happen if mommy dies today because mommy couldn't handle it? What about your kids? And they're like, well, I didn't think about that. Well, it's like most of the time we will have your kids in this chair because I wasn't good enough because mommy or daddy decided to take their lives. So a lot of times when we're dealing with that anxiety, depression, we get into suicide ideation, it's a lot about me and not about anybody else. And we have to remind them, you have loved ones, you have support system. What are the things that give you hope for life?
I would say a couple of things. The first is to disconnect. And there's so much on social media, and so much of it is wrong, and so much of it is misinformation, and so much of it is open to interpretation. At some point, you have to disconnect. You have to stop reading the comments. You have to stop re-traumatizing yourself, watching videos of Black men and Black women being killed. That is continuing to traumatize you. Separate yourself from that. I'm not saying don't take in what you need, but oftentimes we lead with our emotions, which are not stable at times when we're dealing with the crises that we're dealing with. We lead with our emotions instead of with our logic. And so a lot of the comments can get misconstrued. We take it to heart, and we continue to re-traumatize ourselves. The second thing is to set boundaries and stick to those boundaries. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about microaggressions, and confront those small things. Confront the small things. If we want to make a change, it starts with the small and then it avalanches to the big. And the smallest thing that I can think of is the microaggressions. Talking about things like, I hear it every day, your hair is so beautiful. Well, what is it supposed to be? Are you saying that because you've never seen a Black woman with curly fro? And what is good hair? Those types of microaggressions that we have. And then continue to be courageous and continue to be unapologetic in your Blackness. Don't shy away from it because of what we're going through. Continue to stand in it and really focus on your culture, because we can't deal with what other people are doing. We can't change other people's behavior. We can only change what we're doing. So stand unapologetic in your Blackness. And so those are the three things that I would say.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Tiffany said. I'm glad that you said that, because I have a really strong social media following. So I'm on social media a lot. I blame it on my work, but it's because I want to be there too. But I have seen a lot of that, and I focus on self-care. That's a lot of the work that I do. I actually speak about self-care. I have a signature talk. I actually just recently did it for PayPal, and a lot of organizations have been like, hey, Laura, we want you to come and speak about self-care right now. So they're recognizing how important it is for their employees because of everything that's happening right now. But one of the things that I definitely want to say, and I remember actually I put up a post like back when this first happened that, self-care is not watching the video. And that post literally went viral because a lot of people, what happens is we kind of feel like, well, we're Black, we need to be informed, but then we're re-triggering ourselves over and over and over again. Like, we got it. We don't really need to see all of this stuff to know what's going on. We know that we're aware that it's happening. And so I think that we definitely have to have that boundary and understand we don't have to consume everything that is thrown at us. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. They talk about the same stuff over and over and over again. You don't need to watch it 1, 2, 5, 10, 15 times. So I think that's important. But I think the other thing is important that I saw on social media this whole time was really interesting was this whole thing of COVID and everybody's at home. And if you don't have a new project, a new hobby, a new business, like, you're wasting your time. And understanding that we all deal with trauma, we all deal with things differently. And everybody is not gonna come out of this with a new skill, a new hobby, a new income stream, right? Some of us are just gonna be happy just to make it and say, I'm still here, I'm still alive. And so I think part of this time too is giving yourself grace. Like, that is a part of self-care, is being gentle with yourself and not putting these unrealistic expectations on yourself, and really just understanding, like, this is where I am, I'm grieving. There's a lot of loss, loss of job, loss of family member, loss of friends, loss of our way of being. I mean, some of us are still locked in the house and we can't see our friends and family. And so we have to, take all of that in and see that for what it is, and give yourself grace to say, you know what, if I wake up every morning and I make it through this day, I'm doing something, and that is okay. And that is self-care.
Dr. Young, could you give the audience just a layperson's definition of what a microaggression is, just in case? You gave an example, but do you have like an easy definition that you can give them?
So a microaggression, and I just talked about this in the CEU last week, but a microaggression, sorry, you picking on me. A microaggression is simply those everyday things that someone may say that they may not recognize is triggering or meant racially. Sometimes they mean it, sometimes they don't. And it's just those little slide things like, oh, you have good hair, or you're smart for a Black girl, or, those things that they really don't realize are racial. And what I've learned about microaggressions is, like, literally people in the dominant culture and even the minority culture really don't get it, that's racial. They really don't understand it.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Do you have any questions, Dr. Guy, from the audience? I don't see any.
No, we don't have any new ones yet. But I have a ton of questions.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut you off.
I was just going to say, since we touched on racial injustice and what's going on, how have you guys been handling self-care while living through this and helping your clients who are living through this? Because I personally feel like it's been pretty tough for people, for those of us who are usually used to handling that well. I feel like it's been a struggle when I talk in my circles.
The funny thing for me is self-care. I thought this was the greatest time in the world to be doing a doctorate, because if I wasn't, what would I be doing during COVID? And it's like, I don't have anything else to do but study. So that's been my self-care. But also because I have a husband, and I know a lot of people that are at home with their spouses don't like their spouses, and they're not really having a good time with that. But I would say to some of my patients, some of my clients that I've had that are married, they're like, we're having a hard time. Well, how about playing some games to get to know each other? How about having some fun with each other? You don't have to have other people. You didn't marry other people, you married each other. And you need to get to know each other again. And self-care, if you're married or you're living with your significant other, hey, some people don't have anybody at home with them. You do. Take advantage of it and play some games, have some fun together. Quit, arguing and getting on each other's nerves for no reason. So that would be my suggestion to some people. But for my self-care, it's been homework. It's also been meditation. It's also been just taking the time to relax and getting some sleep.
Yeah, my self-care is creating a routine out of no routine. So what I've encouraged other people to do is we're all home. We were all home for a long while before they started opening up things. I go out to work. I would work 12 hours some days. I still have a routine at home. So getting up in the morning with purpose, I still take my shower. I kind of get ready for work, even though I'm going to be in the house. Like, I can't be in the same clothing, because all of that affects your mental health. So I had to create a routine out of a place where there is really no routine, because I'm not home as much and I don't work from home. Like, this is the first time ever I've worked from home. Do I like it? Not really, but I had to create something where it would make it easier for me to deal with it. So I was like, what is my routine outside the house? Oh, you get up in the morning, you eat your breakfast, you say your prayers, you take a shower, you get ready. Like if I was actually going outside to work, except there's no, transportation going on. So I don't have to account for that. So I created a routine. And just in general, I do like self-care stuff. Like I do karate that I've been doing for like 3 years. I started taking yoga. I meditate, I pray, I exercise. So those things help my mental health as long as tapping into my creative side. So I always said, if I had the time, I would do the things and create, and not have the time. So I've been creating a whole lot of stuff.
I would say my self-care as well, creating the environment, like Kay said, that's positive. So working from home during the week, I'm at 2 locations, San Antonio during the week, so video sessions, and then I go to the office in Killeen where I work. So changing the environment up, that helps me, like you said, getting ready, let me do my makeup, even though no one's probably going to be looking at me. Or some days I come and I have yoga clothes on. My clients, they know, they're like, hey, it's 101. We understand that. Working out, I go to the park, meditate, do some, yoga, try to eat healthy. So during this, that was my goal during this. I'm in school as well, doctorate program, running a business, teaching, all of that. So supervision. So hats off to everybody with multiple roles. Definitely that was my goal for this semester, was I'm going to do more self-care for myself. So I was able to lose like 10 pounds, eating healthier, and that's my encouragement to clients, during this pandemic, during everything that's going on now, the race stuff, how are you taking care of yourself? So like you said, emotional support, as a counselor, we need someone to have that to talk to as well. So I always try to be authentic, real with them, transparent, enough to, it's going to help them in their treatment. But yeah, I think those are the main things that has been beneficial for me for self-care.
I think for me, I've been in it. I haven't been off. I've been at an inpatient facility, and we didn't stop. We kept going and we got busier. And so for me, with even the racial traumas and COVID, what I put in place for myself was boundaries, like I talked about. I was not going to be rushed to speak on what was going on. So there was people in my inbox saying, you haven't said anything. You haven't said anything. Well, you're not going to make me say anything until I'm ready to speak on the injustices and to get my mind clear and to really put the words together that I want to say about this. And so when I was ready, I said what I wanted to say, but really just not letting people force me to have a voice or an opinion about something. And then also for my self-care, I've been putting the pieces together of things that have loose ends, like loose ends in my business, loose ends in my home that need to be cleaned up. So just tying up loose ends here and there, having a routine, eating healthier, lost 15 pounds during this pandemic. So just, really trying to tie up the loose ends that need to be tied up while we have the time.
Yeah, I mean, I teach self-care, so I feel like I have to, I have to practice what I preach and actually be really good at it. So I have a self-care plan, but I did deviate in that, I took time to just listen to my body. Like, what do I need today? Because some days are just better than others. Particularly when the protests were really going on and there was a lot of news coverage. Those were, some of those days were rough, just seeing what was going on. And then here in the DC area, there was like a lot of, some violence associated. They weren't necessarily peaceful protests. So I really took it day by day, and I allowed myself that space to feel however I felt in that moment, and to give my body whatever I needed in that moment. I am a nature person, so I spent a lot of time just sitting outside or doing something outside. I meditate every day. I pray every day. I drink my tea every day. That's like my self-care thing. So there's a lot of practices that I do every day, yoga every other day or so. So I kept up those things, but I think I spent a lot more time outside, and a lot more time just sort of reflecting and just taking time out to feel how I was feeling, and to just get my own mind right and process things, because it was a lot. And I think, and what a lot of people may not even realize too, I think for a lot of us is like, we got busier during this time. So we're having to process everything that's going on. And I literally got a flood of clients. And then I started all of my speaking engagements that dried up in like March because everything was canceled. Now everybody switched over to webinars. So now I got all these speaking engagements that I didn't have on my plate. So it was chaos. I was like, what the hell is going on right now? So I really had to just grace and like, okay, Ava Lord, there's a lot going on. How can you get organized, right? That was a big thing, in systems and making my life easier so that some things I could go on autopilot and just take out that time for myself.
I want to piggyback a little bit on what she said about a self-care plan. For those people that are experiencing maybe some suicidal thoughts or things like that, or not just hopelessness and helplessness, having a crisis safety plan in place for yourself is really important as well. What are the triggers that are causing you to have those thoughts? What are the warning signs that you know you're getting triggered? How are you coping? And then who are those couple of people that you can call to assist you through that crisis? What are, like, list down 911, list down a hospital, list down your therapist, but who are those family members and support persons that you can call on the phone? Because although we're social distancing, we still should be, social with people on the phone, virtual, whatever.
Yeah. Some on the self-care piece. So the routines are very important. You want to give yourself a sense of control where there is no control and all that chaos, so that's important. I think a lot of us mentioned that. Sleep is important because of the circadian rhythms. You want to look that up, especially when it comes to like mood disorders and all that. The circadian rhythms are important. I started this program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. It's an 8-week course and it's free. And I've been doing that. That's been very tremendous. And I started juggling. This could be a very good self-care activity, because while you're juggling, it's very hard to worry about, oh, what's going on over here and here. So this has been really good. You don't got to be perfect at it. You can be like really good. So yeah, those are my stuff there. I didn't think I would have an opportunity to bring that up, but yeah.
A lot of people used to always say, I want to go to the gym. I want to go to the gym. I don't want to work out. With being at home, this has been the perfect time. There's so many different exercise things on TV, on YouTube. They're free. You don't have anything else but time. Set a time for yourself to even just do some kind of, learn a new exercise, or watch a new exercise program, yoga, any of those things that you thought you wanted to try. This is a good time to try it, because a lot of us have been going to, I say us, have been going to food as their self-care because it's comfort. And we have to get out of that. We have to put something in that place. And sometimes that might be exercise. It might be mindfulness. When we talk about mindfulness, someone said about going outside. When people go outside, a lot of people don't just look at what's going on outside. Do you really see the trees? Have you looked at the sky lately? Have you noticed some things that you've never noticed before? So some of that is part of the self-care, just being aware of your surroundings.
There is also a lot of fun stuff online. All of the line dances are online. So if you go out, whenever we get to go out again and you don't know the line dances, like by, 2021, you'll have them all down, but they're all on YouTube.
You'll be a pro, man. You'll be line dancing like a pro.
It literally is YouTube University. Everything is on YouTube.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We know that statistically, stats have gone up for domestic violence and just violence towards children, towards the elderly, violence in relationships. And so what would you guys say to those individuals that may be struggling with some of those concerns during this time? Because a lot of us are still trying to stay in as possibly as best as we possibly can. And so, as Andra said, there are married couples, there are couples that are living in the same house with each other and absolutely can't stand the sight of each other. And as a result of those frustrations, they're either taking it out on each other, they're taking it out on their kids, other family members. So what would you say to someone who might be in that situation?
One of the first things that I tell clients is that just because we're in a COVID and we're, at home, do not stay. If you're in danger, do not stay, especially if there's abuse with your spouse, just because, we're supposed to be tied down. There are still shelters out there. There are still places to go. Do not stay just because we're in a pandemic. That's the first thing.
Yeah, I know in New York City, we have crisis centers. So, I mean, if it gets to that extreme, you can always call the domestic violence hotline, or you can call New York City Well, crisis center, mobile clinicians, somebody obviously with safety gear on would come out to de-escalate the situation. So those are always options. Just to, piggyback off what Zandra's saying, like, you don't have to feel like, because we're in a pandemic, we have a war going on our streets, like, you can't utilize resources. You can utilize resources. They just probably have different things implemented to get to you, but they, you can always call someone and talk to them. And if it's really a true emergency, have a crisis center come out to your residence to de-escalate the situation.
Plus, providers, as clinicians, we're all online. Most of us are online. It's easy to get to a clinician now.
Yes.
If you need counseling, you can pick up a phone. We're not that far away. They have different levels of cost, price. We talked about EAP. We talked about Teladoc. We talked about there's help out there. So now you don't have to go anywhere to get counseling. So if you're afraid to be seen because, I don't want anybody to know my business, guess what? They don't. You're on the phone.
And also, a lot of companies are utilizing interns and students who still need hours during this time. I think Dr. Young talked about using practicum students and interns for a lower rate.
Yeah, I mentioned that as well. I worked supervised at a domestic violence shelter for women and children. So definitely creating a safety plan, like having them call, hey, come out, am I safe right now? That's like your basic need. That then we'll go into the counseling piece of that. So kind of making sure you're stable. I still do some face-to-face, I limit, and then I have video. And I know not everyone is doing that, but I do take that precaution with certain clients. So there is someone out there that can be able to help, a clinician or counselor to help where they are, so.
Is everybody doing online? Is anybody doing face-to-face except for Crystal? Any kind of face-to-face?
All online.
All online.
Online.
So then I'll drop this question. What do you guys think about the politicizing of wearing a mask?
You know what? That is that's just really stupid.
That is some foolishness. That is some foolishness. Put your mask on. It's some foolishness.
Right now,
it's a mask.
I wear a mask in my whole entire sessions, but I limit my face-to-face clients. So in between, I get up, I sterilize. It's just me in the office. I have one day that I will see a few clients face-to-face. Of course, there's precautions, kind of like you go to the doctor's office. Like I still went to the doctor and they have a mask. They're still there. They have to treat you. So I keep the distance. We're social distancing as well. Everything is sprayed down, wiped down. If you are sick or been around someone, do not come to the office, schedule a video session. So I try to remind them of that. But I was wondering if I would be able to speak in the mask during the whole session. But surprisingly, I have certain masks, stylish, girly ones that I would wear and that I can speak during session. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
I have just seen COVID up close, and I've seen it up close, and you have got to wear that mask. I mean, I wear it for 12 hours a day, and I speak to people and talk to people and interact with people with the mask on. Get like Crystal said, get you some designer ones if you don't like the medical ones. but you don't have to touch the fire to learn the lesson. Like no one in your family has to get it, or you get it for you to learn the lesson that's being learned over and over every single day.
Well, then in 130,000 plus, because I don't know the new number for today, people have died from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so simple prevention could be wearing a mask where you protect somebody else, not just yourself.
Right.
Right now, I am in Savannah, Georgia, and headed to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My son is going for his schooling. And so everyone's worried because we traveled down here. But you know what? Wear a mask. I am in the emergency room nightly, and COVID is all around me. I have rooms directly around me that have COVID positive patients. And I, wear my mask. I take precautions. The same thing. I was in the CVS here in Savannah, and this man came in sneezing down the aisle, no mask. Another one came in coughing down the aisle, no mask. And it's ridiculous. It's like we are in a pandemic and you guys believe that you shouldn't have a mask. And it said, don't enter the store without a mask. They entered the store with a mask and then put it below their nose or down at their neck. What good does that do? It's ridiculous.
And they're always asking why the healthcare workers are not getting COVID-19 as much as everybody else, because we're wearing a mask.
Exactly.
Right. And I believe a lot of the employees are scared to enforce it because they might run into a Karen or a Don, whatever the male version of Karen is, or you see all you see all these videos of people like confronting store people and just all of that. And so I think people don't confront, because that's what irritates me, is that they see it on the door. Like it's like a law in most of the places. And so they still come in without it, kind of daring people to say anything to them. And so
I guess that depends on where you are too, like what part of the country, because again, here in the Maryland, DC area, because the numbers were so high, they took it very seriously, very early on. So if you go into a place, people have been kicked out of Whole Foods, all kind of establishments, because they're not wearing a mask. They're not afraid to enforce it. But, I was just in Florida and it was a little more lax. Although you were supposed to wear your mask, not everybody was wearing it. So again, I think it depends on where you are too in the culture of where you are. Some places are taking it a lot more serious than other places.
Here in New York, where I am in the Bronx, as much as they want to say like, hey, the Bronx, South Bronx, like people are getting sick, like from what I've seen, people are wearing their masks. Mm-hmm. And I go like outside of the Bronx, like I've been to Brooklyn, I've been to, Washington Heights, I've been to Yonkers, like people are wearing their masks in New York City. There might be a small percentage that are not, but majority of people that I've seen are wearing their masks. And for me, it's like, we're only wearing it for a couple of minutes, especially like I'm a person that drives everywhere. So if I'm in my car, I'm not really having my mask on. I may have it around my face, but it's a reminder that when I get out my car, like my mask comes up over my nose, but it's only for a couple of minutes. I'm running into the store, I'm putting gas in my car, or whatever it is. You're going to the doctor's office, you're getting your nails done, your hair done. So to me, unless you're wearing it throughout the day for the whole day, like 5 minutes is not like a big deal. But that's just my opinion.
A new topic of anxiety that's coming up for clients as well is those clients that I have that are parents, because school is coming up. And so some of the districts are saying mask if you want to, some are saying you can go from home, some are saying you can do hybrid and all of that. So have any of you run across that with your parents, the clients that are parents?
I haven't seen that yet, but here I'm in PG County, Maryland, and it was literally just announced today that for at least the first until January, it was going to be all online. So that's going to be a new discussion now of what do I do with my kids because they're home all day. So that's going to be more the discussion as opposed to social distancing and wearing the mask.
Well, here there's an option. So the school districts gave the parents the option to vote on it. And so they have some that can go to school. I talked to one of my parents today and she said, you know, while she needed to be at work, she didn't want to send her kid to school because they're not enforcing the mask. So anybody who sends their child who does not have to wear the mask, her child is exposed to them.
Well, one of the things I've been having is teachers. They gave the kids the options, but they did not give the teachers the option to stay at home or go. The teachers have to go. Yeah. And so I have a lot of patients, a lot of clients that are teachers, and they're like, you know, I don't want to be exposed, come home and expose my child if my child stays at home. So that's another discussion that a lot of the teachers are having that anxiety about it.
Right. And I think that's going to keep coming up.
Yeah, it's going to get worse in the next month or so. I'm a counselor, but I'm also a parent with a school-age child and a child that just went to college as well. So there is a lot of anxiety around it. I have all the questions. So I'm a frontline worker. How am I going to monitor my child and her learning? And I feel like it's setting her up for failure if she doesn't go back to school. And then I sympathize with the teacher. My husband's a teacher. So I have all sides of it, you know, and I understand all sides of it. And it's gonna get worse as it gets closer to school time opening.
Right.
Yeah, our school board or NKISD, Colleen, they decided that they were making the students come back to school and the teachers not doing the online. So that was something, advocacy, a group that I'm a part of, that we're, you know, in education trying to, hey, promote, like, that's not safe. So a lot of people spoke at the school board. So every district is different. So my son, we're in San Antonio, he's middle school. So they have the option, a hybrid, different options that we voted on. But in Colleen, they're saying, oh, well, you could still come, wear the mask. Teachers have to get their own cleaning supply stuff, you know, and it was just a lot of discussion and disheartening. And I worked in the district I'm not in the district anymore, for 12 years. So it's kind of like, wow, you know, the safety of the teachers, bus drivers, the custodian, the staff, you know, is at risk. And I don't know if they thought that through, but definitely I think it's a discussion. The seriousness, every place is not taking those precautions.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, you guys, as we're talking about what we're expecting in the upcoming weeks or even in the upcoming months. So unfortunately, we live in a reactive society and we're not very proactive. And so we know that we're going to have these challenges very soon as it relates to school and dealing with COVID and still having to shelter in place for some states. So what would you all say to individuals that are listening, parents, non-parents? What can people do to put in place to deal with their mental health? Because we're talking about wearing the mask, which that is my soapbox, because that relates to our physical health. And so what precautions, what things can we say, this is how you can start being proactive because this is your mental health, right? Because as someone said on our meeting last week, everyone has mental health, right? That's not something that is just specific to a group of people. We all have mental health, but sometimes our mental health is better in certain cases and worse in certain cases, depending on what's going on in our lives. So we anticipate that individuals' mental health is going to decline because of all the stresses that they're experiencing. So what would you all say to those individuals? How can they start being proactive and taking care of their mental health despite everything that's going to be they're going to be experiencing soon?
That's interesting because I looked at a study that was like 7,000 people, and 80% said that because of COVID, now mental health needs to be a bigger focus. So I agree with that. I think it'll be interesting to hear from everyone, but I think the most important thing to do, if you have time, is just to research very simply what are the warning signs and symptoms of mental health distress. Because I feel like if you don't know what the warning signs are, it's very hard to identify it and then act upon it.
Absolutely. I would say marking the self-care routine, you know, having a routine before I start school back as well as a student semester and different roles. So I had to, one, know my limits, set boundaries, and hey, what is causing me to be stressed? What, like you said, what are those triggers? Exercise helps bring those happy hormones, eating healthy. So assessing and being self-aware and mindful, like what's going on in your world right now? What does that look like when you are stressed and when school and other things kind of pop back up? Or if I have to wear a mask, you know, how can I, you know, distance myself? So even I do untraditional, like some people say, I go to the home, or we have go to the park and do a session or something like that. So it doesn't have to be like where we're inside the building, but, you know, being creative is a big thing right now in our way of self-care and our routine and our work. So.
Yeah, again, I mean, self-care is the best healthcare. And I think what people forget is that the first word in self-care is self. And so in order to really practice self-care, you have to know yourself, get to know yourself. And so your self-care plan is not going to look like somebody else's self-care plan. So take that time out to really get to know yourself, what works for you. You know, for some people, they like to take their shower in the morning, but maybe you want to take your shower at night. You know, some people, they want to have 6 mini meals throughout the day. For you, you know, it's only 3 meals a day. Like, you got to get to know yourself and do what works for you. Don't feel like you got to do things the way everybody else does it or the way that you used to do it. Like, create a self-care plan and don't be afraid to revise it based on what's happening and what's going on around you and what your new needs are now. So self-care is about healthcare. Create a self-care plan and base that plan upon what works for you.
We talk about self-care, but there are some people sitting there saying, well, what is self-care? What is this big thing that I'm supposed to do? They don't realize that just taking a shower is self-care. Your mind can't do 2 things at one time. So when you're totally anxious and you're counting backwards by threes, that's, you know, that's stuff that can bring down that anxiety. So research, what is self-care? What are some of the self-care tools? What are some mental things you can do? You can Google that stuff. If you don't have a therapist, you can Google it. It's not any kind of wow, bang, big thing. It's what helps calm you and makes you get to that happy place. If it's a shower, if it's riding a bike, if it's just sitting and reading a good book, that's still self-care. A lot of people don't realize that.
And create a plan, not just a self-care plan, but look at the big areas of your life, your financial, your family, your school, and look at those different areas and work on a strategic plan for the next few weeks. So for instance, for my daughter, I went to work today and I started printing her off some review from her 3rd grade year. And I started printing off some 4th grade stuff where she's going into. So planning that and getting the kids, especially if you're a parent, get them back into the routine of school. I know it's summer, but summer's coming to an end. And so go ahead and start getting them back into the routine. Stop letting them stay up all night till 3 a.m. Go to bed at a reasonable time. You go to bed at a reasonable time. I'm speaking to myself. Okay, put TikTok down and go to bed at a reasonable hour. Okay, look at your financial plan and see if you're prepared. If, let's say, we do have another shutdown and you have to work from home again, or you get furloughed, what is your plan? Because when we don't have a plan, that's what increases those distress levels and those stress levels that we have. Look at your family time. Look at your marriage. What is my plan for my marriage in the next couple of weeks? I know I'm about to get busy. I know school's about to start. I know I'm about to have to do this. What's my plan for my marriage? What's my plan for keeping my home clean? What are those different plans that you're going to have and set in place? And like the other clinicians have said, you're going to have a plan, but you're going to have to assess those every single day to see if they're still working, right? So it's not one thing about mental health, it's not a one-time thing. It's every single day putting work into that. Just like we go to the gym every single day because we want those muscles, we got to work our brain muscles every single day in order to get them healthy and strong and change up our plans as they align with what we're dealing with at that time.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Real quick on the financial, I want to say, like, all of my clients right now, we are working on a side hustle plan, because I don't care if you have a 9-to-5 or not, everybody needs a side hustle. So that is a part of the financial plan, is how can you get other streams of income coming in? Because maybe you can't depend on your job.
Yeah, nobody's.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know somebody who just got laid off from after 11 years or something because of the COVID.
Hmm.
Definitely with no backup plan, because they didn't feel it necessary.
They didn't anticipate it was going to happen.
Exactly.
Steve, I know we're getting ready to wrap up in a bit, but I want to go back to that comment that you just made about people should be able to know, identify the warning signs. And so let's talk about that real quickly, because I think so many of us live in distress that it becomes our baseline. So we function at that rate normally, So now when we've added all these other stressors to the previous stressors that we've had, how do we differentiate between, oh, this is a red flag versus this is my baseline? Like, I'm always stressed, I'm always worried, I'm always anxious. And so what are some things that you guys would say might be some red flags for people to pay attention to and watch out for?
I would say anything that's consistent, like most people, I would say, but maybe not most people, to know what their normal is, right? It's just like how we have to get a physical every year, and that usually tells us what our normal is, right? And so when we deviate from that, then obviously something's wrong. You have to go to the doctor, they got to give you medication. So it's the same thing like with your mental health, kind of knowing normally how you deal with things, because we all have stress. Like there's positive stress and there's like negative stress. Okay, positive stress be like, you know, like your wedding day or something like that, and the negative be like, you know, trauma, somebody, you know, died tragically, XYZ. So just knowing what you normally, how you function, and then this, if it's consistently like deviating from that and it's persistent, then that's like a warning sign. Like obviously, I'll give an example. If you are, maybe you're normally not like a happy-go-lucky person, and your mood is kind of like, you know, down here, but if it continues to tanker, you know, you're persistently feeling sad and overwhelming stress and irritability, then that may be a red flag that you're experiencing symptoms of depression. And you may need to speak to someone and get evaluated, or just be assessed, you know, talking to someone and telling them your symptoms, like, oh, I do have depression, or maybe, no, I don't, but I'm experiencing symptoms of it. So just knowing normally where you are and how you deal with things, and then when you deviate from that, just being able to identify that.
Yeah, I would add, so you want to look, of course, for significant deviations from the norm or your baseline. But another thing to think about is, here's a cheat code, all right? So any psychiatrist, any clinician, whenever you're speaking to them, they're going to look for, so you could tell them anything, like, hey, I drink a lot of alcohol, or hey, I have, I don't know, whatever you put out of there, right? But you want to look for significant impairments in your social functioning, because we're social beings, and then work, right? So work and then your social ability. So if you notice that whatever you're doing is now impairing your ability to function in those areas, that's where you would start thinking about it. And then the second thing is, you might want to invest some time to look into mental health first aid, which I'm sure you all have heard about, but it's a nice, I think it's an 8-hour course, but even if you just took 4 hours or even just a 1 hour of it, it'll show you the warning signs and symptoms of distress and what you need to look for. So important.
A lot of times don't minimize what's going on with you, because a lot of times we're thinking, well, I'm not crazy. Just because things are going on doesn't mean you're crazy. It just means you need to talk with somebody. You're not the only one going through it. Even as clinicians and just as people in general, we're all going through this. We're all in this pandemic together. And so you're not crazy. You're not, just because you have to talk with somebody doesn't mean that. Crazy is not even a medical term anyway. We all have, our brain runs everything. And so everybody has a mental inability of something. If you're afraid of a frog, that's a mental inability. And so at this time, you may be having a mental inability to deal with some of the things that are going on with the stress, the anxiety, the things that are going on in this world, but you're not by yourself. And it's okay to get some help and talk with someone.
I was going to say the interest, like if you notice that you're not really interested in the things that you normally do. So like I look at with positive psychology, when we're being our best possible self, we have things that bring us life. You know, we got energy, we're excited, we're passionate. If those things are diminished, then, you know, maybe let me just take a little moment, self-reflect. How am I feeling? Like I always say, a wellness check-in with myself. You know, what's going on? Something, you know, I would do between clients, even if, you know, sometimes dealing with certain clients, that it's a lot, their energy. And I'm like, okay, let me regroup. Let me get focused before I go into session with this particular client. So knowing what your interests are, how your body feels, like you said, the baseline, where you are, all of those things are important flags, and everybody is going to be different. So you know what your normal is, what you feel, what brings you happiness and joy. When was the last time you felt happy? You know, thinking about that. What were you doing? Who was around you? And things like that.
And thinking about also the frequency and the intensity of the symptoms that you're experiencing. And so that's some of the things that clinicians look at when we're diagnosing and things like that. And so looking at, let's say you're sleeping, you normally sleep 6 hours. Well, now you slept 14 hours. Well, that's an increase in frequency of how much you're sleeping. And then you want to look at the pattern of, okay, am I sleeping 14 hours a day, 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 7 days a week? Then that may constitute an issue that you're having. Maybe you are experiencing some symptoms of depression or something like that. Also, if your behaviors start to overflow into other areas of your life besides just home. So if you are angry and then you go to work and now you're lashing out at everybody, you may be experiencing a warning sign at that point. Loss of interest, like we discussed. If you're feeling negative feelings more days out of the week than not. So if you're feeling sad or angry or anxiety 5 days out of 7, then we need to talk about some warning signs at that point.
Megan, this is your wrap up.
I was like, wait, is it me? Okay. So what we like to do is have everybody say their last words for the night. We really want to thank you for participating with us tonight. And we hope that you spread the word to other clinicians so that we can feature even more people. So we'll have you each go around and say how people can find you, and then your last words.
Should I start?
And we'll start. Yeah, sure.
All right, Steve Alexander, put the junior on there if you really want to find me. Psychology Today, authorityspeaking.com. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you're interested in this whole communication thing, I wrote a book called Speak, A Simple Guide to Public Speaking. And if you have children, we got show and tell tale. Look at it. The main character is black. All right. Last thing I'm going to mention is I also found a clinical think tank called, I guess you call it gang affiliated think tank for children and their families. So any clinicians that are interested in working with that population, reach out to me. I love you all. This was so amazing. I almost didn't attend, but I'm happy I did. And talk to you soon.
Thank you.
I'm Ava Laura, again, avalaura.com. I am Googleicious. I am Ava Laura everywhere, AVALAURA. Go to my website. It is my hub for everywhere, so you can get all my links to social media. I am on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I am not on TikTok. Not getting on that. But,
not yet, Ava Laura, not yet. It's addictive.
It's addictive.
That's why I'm not getting on it. I know my limit. When you go on my website, you can also listen to my podcast. You can request a consultation. You can watch my YouTube videos. So go to my hub, avalaura.com. I look forward to connecting with you all. You can also join my mailing list as well to stay in the loop. And again, I'll keep it very simple. Self-care is the best healthcare. Take care of yourself.
I am Kay Henry. I am again from the NYC, Boogie Down Bronx, working Lower Westchester and the Bronx, all over. Yes, I rep the NYC, but I also rep my Caribbean people. I didn't mention that. So my family is from Barbados, so big up all my Caribbean people. You can please check out my podcast, Black Therapy Uncensored, where I speak positivity into you in each show episode, and we listen, learn, and apply. That is the theme. So we listen, we learn, we apply what I've given you. So you can catch me on Facebook, spell it out, Black Therapy Uncensored. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter, Black Therapy Uncensored. Take out all the vowels except for the U. I have my private practice, Positive Minds, Mental Health Counseling, Psychotherapy, and I do have donated free hours to This Is Dark Therapy. So you can look me up there. If anyone's looking for free services, I have donated some hours to them to help people in the New York State area. And that's it. And I thank you all. It's okay to not be okay. And do not be afraid to see a therapist. Like, let it be the thing. Let it be a trend that you come and we heal together. We laugh together. And I use humor as a healing tool. So I didn't use it here, but in therapy, I use humor to heal. So.
I am Dr. Tiffany Young, and you can locate me on Facebook at Dr. Tiffany Young or on Instagram at TY Mental Health Consulting. I have a website. It's www.drtlyoung.com. Please pick up a Maya and Friends See a Counselor for your children. Again, it's going to put children of color in the counseling session and show them what we do. My last words is continue to be unapologetically Black and normalize mental health in the Black community.
Hi, my name is, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, sorry. Crystal Morris, in the Killeen area. I'm the owner, clinical director of Butterflies Prospering Wellness Company. We are a multidisciplinary group practice. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Also have a brand, 21 Days of Positive Living or Positive Living. So check our book out. It's a journal, has gratitude, relationship, self-worth, positive well-being. You can journal 21 days for each of those. Practice to have a positive mindset. So I think part of that mental health wellness is thinking positive, and I always like to say engaging in positive activities. So again, you can follow us on 21 Days of Positive Living and also Butterflies Prospering Wellness. And I thank you again for allowing me to be on, and you guys have a great evening as well.
Thank you,
My
Crystal.
name is Zandra Rutledge. I can be reached at psychologytoday.com. I can also be reached at yourlifecca@gmail.com. I'm also the co-owner of Marriage Untamed with my husband, who's also a counselor. You can reach me on marriageuntamed.com on the website. And I am on Facebook on Marriage Untamed. I just glad that, you guys allowed us to be out here, and there are counselors that look like you out there. So don't be ashamed and don't be afraid to just contact someone and talk with us.
All righty, you guys. We so appreciate you giving 2 hours of your time after working long hours. I know this is a long day, so we thank you. We do hope that you guys can tell other clinicians about our Wednesday night Zooms, because again, we want to be able to highlight as many Black clinicians as we can, because we know that we're out there. We know that clients are looking for people that look like them. And so lastly, before I turn it over to Megan, I mentioned the ethics workshop that I am doing tomorrow. I posted the link in the group. So if anybody wants to register and you missed it, just send me a message and I can get you registered. So that's an ethics CEU workshop for all you licensed folks. You know you need them ethics and you waited to the last minute like I always do. And if you're interested in starting a private practice and you don't want to go through that process by yourself or learn by trial and error, which I had to do 12 years ago, then you should visit my website, which is the 100kcounselor.com, where you can get assistance in how to start your practice, build your practice, and grow your practice. And of course, you can follow me on every platform, Dr. Tanisha Guy on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget Dr. Guy Gumbo Talk on Sundays at 4. Megan.
What are your last words?
Oh, my last words is wear a mask. I need to in the house.
All right, thank you again. My name is Megan Pickens. You can find me online. My handle on all social media is witwizmegan.com. So WITWIS Megan.com. That stands for Where in the World is Megan, because I used to be all over the place before COVID, and now I guess I'm still national because I can still be on here. You can find my practice online, and one of my quote unquote side hustles is that I teach supervision. And so I have a 40-hour supervisor certification course coming up and a supervisor refresher all in August, because people are asking me to do it in August, and we'll see how that goes. I plan on doing it though. And my last words are, it is Minority Mental Health Month, so stay Black. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, y'all, we're off the live stream.
Something is wrong with all of y'all.
Clearly, it has to be. We're therapists. We're helping professional life coaches. You know it's something wrong with us.
I couldn't think of anything else to say, and I'm so tired today. So I was like, okay, I need to think of something. And that's the first thing. I actually was thinking blackity black. Blackity black.
You should have done that, girl. I would have been right with you. Show enough. Show enough.
Megan, you did say we're off live, right?
Yes.
Why have all these white people texting me? Oh, my
What, saying they want to come to you because they saw you online?
Somebody, wait a minute. Now, are they just, can I get online? It's Black people.
It's me, a Black mental health professional.
Right.
They'll share the video like